Welcome to another episode of What's New at AGBU. We are here today with Ms. Araksya Karapetyan from Fox 11's Good Day L.A.
Of course, you need no introduction since you're so well known both in the Armenian and American communities. But with this interview, we would like to delve deeper into your story. Beginning with your family background, you're from Gyumri. At what age did your family immigrate to the United States? And how did your family preserve their culture as they were adapting to life in the United States?
I was 7.5. We moved to the United States in 1990, and I have a lot of memories of that move. I didn't realize that it was forever. I thought I was going on a trip. But, we moved here, and we actually moved into more of an American area. It wasn't Glendale or Hollywood. It was the South Bay, Palos Verdes, and there aren't many Armenians there. So I went to school and learned English, and I didn't have the comfort at that time of speaking Armenian at school or going to an Armenian school. So at the time, I was too young to realize it, but it must have been difficult and maybe even depressing, come to think of it, leaving everything behind that you've known and coming somewhere and not knowing the language and being in an area where you had to survive by acclimating. And I remember I immediately wanted to be out of ESL, English as a second language. They put me in there, and I remember telling my mom, get me out of that class. I don't want to be there. So my goal had become to learn English as fast as possible to not have to go to English as a second language. And from that point on, everything I did was to blend in with everyone. And it took a while for me to realize the specialness and the uniqueness of actually not being like everyone else. And from that point on, I think I've always celebrated the fact that, I was different.
You often hear journalism is a very competitive field. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to pursuing journalism and ending up on Fox 11?
It is a competitive field for sure. I didn't really know this is what I wanted to do at the time. I went to Syracuse University in upstate New York. They have a very good broadcasting school. I didn't know that though when I went there. I went there and I majored in international relations. And then while I was there, I discovered that they have this really great broadcasting school. And I thought, okay, sure, I'll give it a try. And I double majored. And even the day I graduated, I didn't know this is what I wanted to do, because what you learn in school and the program is so different from real life. And it wasn't exciting enough for me. I wasn't sure if this is something I wanted to pursue. And I moved back home after college, and I still was uncertain of what I wanted to do. I started working at KFI Radio, 6:40 a.m., KABC News, City Cable in Torrance, which is a great program. If anyone wants to pursue journalism, they should check that out, because you really get to be the reporter. You go out there, you do stories, you work with the photographer, you come back and you put it together. And so I put a tape together, and with the way it goes, off you go to some small town. That's how you have to begin. But I went to Idaho Falls, packed up the car, drove there. It was tough. I was producing, I was editing, I was doing my own videos. I would go around town with a tripod and a camera, carrying it. I would set up my live shots myself. I would come in front of the camera, make sure I was in the frame, walk back, hit record, go back in front of the camera. So doing all of those things gave you a sense of what it took to do those jobs. It was a great experience. I was depressed while I was there because it was hard, but looking back now, it was amazing. And then from there, I went to Portland, Oregon. And from there, I ended up in Los Angeles.
Can you briefly describe a typical morning on Good Day L.A.?
Now, every job has a bit of a routine, but this is probably one of those jobs where it's the least like a routine, in the sense that you never know. I'm late to this interview with you guys because I sent you a message during the newscast saying, hey, we have breaking news. You guys, I have to push this back because it's so unpredictable. You just never know what's going to happen. But basically, I get up really, really early, like at 2:30 in the morning when everyone else is asleep. Nowadays, we don't have hair and makeup here in the studio because of COVID. So I get ready at home for the most part. I show up to work with the rollers in my hair and half of my makeup done. As I'm finishing getting ready, I'm also listening to the newscast, listening to a radio station maybe, reading my scripts, changing my scripts as I'm doing like 20 other things at the same time. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm officially on the set, reading the stories, talking about the stories, breaking news is happening. So it gives you a chance to be kind of light on your feet and think outside of the box, be able to communicate with people, not just read the teleprompter. And let me tell you, reading that teleprompter isn't easy. People think, what are you, just sitting there and reading? No, you can't just be reading. You don't want to sound like you're being a news anchor. And I think when you first get into this business, there's this misconception that you need to sound that way. And that's not really the case. So from 5 until 10, I'm on the air. It's not one of those jobs that you have to think about afterwards. But these days with social media and news always happening, you're constantly keeping an eye and monitoring things of the day because the next morning you're likely going to have to talk about it.
It is not often we see Armenian journalists, and if we do, they're not as outspoken about Armenian topics as you are. Can you tell us a little bit about how you bring so many Armenian stories to a primarily American audience?
I'm very determined. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy in the sense that you have to make people care, right? For a topic like what we saw recently with the attacks in Armenia and then the war and then just everything that happened following that, it was a topic that many people were unfamiliar with. So immediately they don't think it matters because it's not happening here. So you have to first explain why it matters. You have to show how you can localize an international story. And then it falls on you, on me in this case, to constantly keep digging and interviewing and finding angles and pitches and ways to make people care about the story. And I found out early on right away that, if I found the human aspect of the story, if I found that human interest of the story, then I was able to kind of keep pursuing it and keep pushing the topic. But if it fell on me, if I didn't do it, no one else was going to do it. It wasn't easy at all, but I was lucky to work somewhere where the staff was supportive once they saw this was important for me. And it took me just kind of being determined and not giving up. So I was lucky enough to be able to do that.
How has your Armenian identity affected your journalism? Has it put you at an advantage or even a disadvantage?
I wouldn't say it's put me at a disadvantage. I think it's actually elevated me in the sense that I've stood out. I've been different, especially working in small towns like Idaho and Portland. There isn't big Armenian communities there. So for them, I was exotic. My look was different or my name was different. So it was nice. I liked it. I embraced it because I didn't blend in. So it's funny, right? In the beginning, I was telling you how I wanted to blend in. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like everyone else when I first came to this country. But quickly I realized that, hey, actually capitalize and take advantage of the fact that you're different, because being different is what's going to make you stand out. When you get into this industry, if you're like everyone else, then what difference does it make? Being able to offer a different perspective is what's going to make you stand out. So I've always embraced that, and I really, I'm very proud of that. And I think it's so important now. I think this was highlighted with what happened in Armenia, the importance of having more people in the media. The more representation we have, the more our voices would be heard and will be heard. So I hope this encouraged people to maybe pursue media.
What are some morals and values that you grew up with that you'd also like to instill in your daughters growing up?
Well, I think family is important to us as Armenians. So being raised to always put family first. We all know that family is the most important thing. And fighting really hard to keep our culture and heritage and our roots alive and well in, we live in a foreign land in the sense that this isn't Armenia. I'm Armenian American. I'm very proud of that. And I think it's important for my children to be proud of having Armenian roots, yet at the same time embracing the fact that they're living in this country in America now. They're Armenian Americans. So you're able to pick and choose and take the best of both worlds and to kind of blend and have respect for both worlds and become something wonderful. The most important thing for me is to have children who are good people at the end of the day. It's about being good people, being respectful towards others, being proud of who you are, yet also being able to always see someone else's point of view, always embrace someone else's point of view, always see the good in others and other things. This job has also forced me to maybe look at things I otherwise wouldn't have a different perspective I otherwise would never have had. You come across so many people, so many different types of stories that it's really an eye-opener. It makes you become much more open-minded.
What is the most challenging aspect of your career? Has there ever been a story you did not want to cover?
This job is not exactly stable because again, it's competitive and people are replaceable. They are. So you have to be your best to prove to people that you're not replaceable. You have something to offer that is different and special. So it's kind of like the struggle to survive. You're always kind of working hard to prove your value. And it can become draining and challenging. But if you're just working towards your best always as a human being, then it makes it a little bit easier. I remember when I was out in the field as a reporter, the hardest thing for me was to go and try to talk to someone who had suffered a loss. Because the truth was, I wouldn't want to talk to a reporter or a media if I was going through something difficult. So I knew that in my heart, and it was hard for me to, get someone to talk to me because I had a deadline, right? Pragmatically, I had a deadline and I needed to get an interview. But in my heart, I knew that I didn't blame someone if they didn't want to talk. I would walk up to a door and knock on the door, and I was like, please don't answer the door. Please don't answer the door. I almost wanted them not to answer the door so I wouldn't have to put these people in that position. And then I could prove that, well, I tried, and no one was there. So it was always this battle of trying to be human, yet also being a reporter.
So other than staying focused and having strong speaking and writing skills, what do you think is necessary for those considering a career in journalism?
A lot has changed. When I was an intern, you put a tape together and you sent it off and waited to get a call back from a news director. Nowadays, you can send a link and you have social media. And I think a lot of news directors or companies or people are able to even follow you online and see your work. You're able to display your work every single day. You can get people's attention in a much more different way. Even before my time, people would actually physically drive to news stations and walk in and hand a tape to the news director hoping to get hired. So there's been so much change that's happened in this business and really everywhere with the internet and social media. So you're at an advantage now because you can get people's attention in a much more easier way. At the same time, you have to be mindful that people might be watching and following you. I know that my bosses and the higher ups in New York follow us on social media. They keep track of what we're doing and what, how we're representing ourselves and presenting ourselves. So you have to be mindful of those things. But really it comes down to hard work and you wanting something bad enough.
Without the large audience you have, how would you recommend that we as students and as an Armenian community spread word about Armenia and its rich culture, including, the day-to-day events that might be relevant to us as a community, but not necessarily to someone outside of our community?
We go back to the big reach that social media has. People see your post or share your post, but it's not just about social media. I think just being engaged, whether it's you making friends with someone or just in your local neighborhood, the way we carry and represent ourselves is how people see our country and who we are. Because you might come across some people that have never met someone who's Armenian, and the way you present yourself is how they'll view Armenians because they're not around so many Armenians. So for them, that experience is going to shape their image of what Armenian is. So it's such a small thing, but it can play such a bigger role. You can make people care about Armenia or Armenians or the topic or the country of Armenian because of who you are and what you do in your own little neighborhood.
Thank you so much, Ms. Karapetyan, for sharing your story with us. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
And thank you also to our audience for watching another episode of What's New at AGBU.